query I am this morning standing in front of you all, trying to discuss a topic about which I must say incredibly ignorant, but I couldn't get past the opportunity because the gentleman who helped build what we call the Unit of Hope, it's the St. John's Center for Children with Special Needs on the campus at St. John's. He requested and said the earlier speaker had actually suddenly found some additional engagements and couldn't come, and I had 2 days before I was actually supposed to come and stand in front of you. And in these 2 days I was in Hyderabad and I just finished a marathon running there, and I came back really tired, and I spent half of yesterday trying to think how am I going to put this across. Then I thought the only way, I told myself what I would probably tell a lot of my patients, I told myself the only way I'm going to deal with this is just be honest, share what I know, and they are the experts who know how actually these things should be done. I'm not the one who is supposed to be knowing how these things should be done, but I can probably put across what my demands are, and maybe we can discuss it, and through that probably we'll get some thoughts about how these things can be done. So that kind of gave me a little bit of confidence, and I hope we can have a discussion. I'll just put across our domain needs, and you can probably tell us how we're going to do it. And as we think together, maybe something will evolve, and we can all carry back that information with us today. The idea of actually thinking about design in building hospitals, I don't think it exists actually, to be honest. I've been around at St. John's for 20-25 years. There are mile-long corridors, there are wards on either side. So it starts with a T, it becomes an H, then it becomes like a railway track, and it just keeps building up like that, and that's about it. And a whole lot of things get built as per convenience. And as we come towards the end of my talk, there's a question always on my mind is, hospitals, any clinical settings, are they built for convenience of the doctors, or are they built for the convenience of the people who come for health care? I have never been sure about it. And being a doctor myself, I find it easy to empathize with both positions, to be honest, because sometimes work has to get done also, after sometimes work has to happen. Like, think about design is probably, I think, a more modern concept, and if at all they would think about design, it will be saying, if from the outpatient, can the patient go very close to the lab and complete the registration and come back and see the doctor quickly? Maybe they'll just look at proximity as probably one component. Okay, but to think about how the building should be, and if you notice a whole lot of new hospitals all over Bangalore, either they are big, huge glass and concrete structures, or if you travel into certain other parts of the state outside Bangalore, you'll find they're all like, some modification of Vidhanasabha architecture, I don't know what to call it, some Saracenic architecture or whatever, but it's all like that. And some of them I can't even, when I went and visited a hospital in Mysore, I couldn't even think of how I kind of, I'm suddenly getting into a wrong place, maybe it's a palace or something, it's probably not a hospital at all. So I don't think there's too much thought that actually goes into designing hospitals. So if you think that we're going to be spending an hour today here discussing about this, I think it will be probably one of the first times this is happening. So I think we can all be excused for our ignorance around this topic at present. The other thing is, beyond hospital, I'm a child psychiatrist. I'm a psychiatrist. I do see a lot of adult patients. Psychiatrists come from medical backgrounds, and they start with the medical degree, then they go on to do their psychiatric post-graduation. The way it kind of helps them differentiate from psychologists is probably say that they can also prescribe medications and believe in their abstractions, which we all call diagnosis, and we think we know exactly how this term captures everything that's happening to that individual, right? And so that's a difference. Otherwise, a lot of work that psychologists do and psychiatrists do overlap, and psychologists do a far better job in many situations. So, now, I've been in St. John's Hospital for more than 20 years, and I've seen more and more buildings of the exact same nature getting added. It's amazing how when St. John's extends, this section comes and you're just seeing some usual construction thing going on, and then when the finish comes, The corridors are exactly the same as it was planned 25 years ago. The same tiles come up on both sides, the same tiles on the floor, exact same. I really wonder how they actually manage it, and it's kept pretty decently. If you all have visited St. John's, most of the corridors are kept quite nice, but exact replica. And the outside suddenly starts to be exactly the same. And the T-shaped medical college, as part of Golden Jubilee, became an H, and everything is absolutely the same. The H part has got exactly the same as it was before, right? So I wonder how they do it, but they do it, and that's about one exposure I have to about how hospitals are constructed, to be honest. Working in certain other parts of the world, I have seen more of the good, well-established hospitals are like Victoria Hospital, and they are some huge sprawling structures, brick, or some of them just stone buildings, and huge corridors. And all you find in hospitals are lengthy corridors. You can sit from here and you can plan a half a kilometer dash. You can have 1 kilometer walk if you go up and down. That's about the exposure I would say I honestly have. Till, not that I'm going to say something dramatically different, but till this gentleman who actually asked me to come over here, Mr. Sanjay, who actually was one of the main team of architects who was involved with what we call the Unit of Hope. There is a presentation tomorrow I noticed by Dr. Deepthi, who is speaking on hospitals. She is one of the persons who managed to get all the funding and all the planning for the new building. So I kind of thought I'll not steal her thunder. So you were not going to get any pictures of the Unit of Hope today. She's going to probably put that. But the Unit of Hope, again, the outside facade, stone, the little tiny areas where there were bricks, they were all absolutely painted in the exact same colors of St. John's, so it looks the same. But Mr. Sanjay sat with all of us and said, how can we build this, how's the orthopedic section going to be, how's the ENT section going to be, and we just shared whatever thoughts we had in the matter. And it's a place where, children with a lot of disabilities, children with developmental disabilities, children with autism, children with speech delay, children with overactivity, a lot of them come there and take care, and it's one place where there is pediatrics, psychiatry, neurology, orthopedics, ENT, ophthalmology. You will not find a place anywhere in India where all these departments are available to children with disabilities under one roof. So we're quite proud of that place. Having become what it has become, I would have thought, when I was asked to speak on this topic, I thought we should have spent a heck of a lot of time more planning how it should be done. And believe me, though we thought we spent about 10-12 hours thinking over it, I don't think we really put our thoughts into it. We did not know what thought should go into it, except some utilitarian stuff maybe, and to some extent maybe saying we want a little more space, children should run around or something like that. Beyond that, honestly, we had no idea how it should be done. It shaped up well, children seem to come there and enjoy, so I presume basics are fine, but perhaps, with inputs of experts like yourself, maybe it would have been far better than what it is, because it's turned out to be quite a nodal place for a variety of activities. So that's me, and that's where I work. I give you all my disclaimers, so let me go to the first slide. Now, I saw this as the heading for today's whole day. To be honest, anthropometry is something I'm familiar with, ergonomics I'm not. Long back when we were doing community health in MBBS, I think there was a small topic on this about workplace health and all that, and this term I came across. So I'm not very sure if my presentation will exactly fit into what's actually these two terms that I saw as the theme for entire lunch, all the sessions for today, but I at least thought I'll share what I think are the definitions of this. This I'm aware of. The challenge could be that this is a place where, if you talk about settings for child psychiatry, this will be the place where there are going to be children of all sizes. It's not going to be, it's not a creche where you can plan for something who are just around less than 3, maybe infants and toddlers. It's not a school with say just running the kindergarten program, so you can probably know what's going to be like. This is a place where right from children all the way up till 17, 18-year-olds come. So as we go along, I would like your suggestions on how that can be factored in when we actually build these kind of places. And there's doctors trying to find time in between seeing patients, trying to see if they can, maybe answer a few other quick messages that are come or do something, and they're trying to look around for places because they just got out there, what's a patient sitting, and they can't be seen to be ignoring them and doing their own work. So probably there are a lot of needs of the people who work there also, but very often I think the topics such as this, especially given the overarching theme for your entire series, would focus on the children we serve. So I'll try to limit to that and say what I would expect that happens in this setting. I already given you an idea of what I do. There are two parts to it. I'm sorry if it seems like a repetition to some of you, but child psychiatry would cover the entire gamut of children with emotional problems, behavior problems, children with neurodevelopmental problems. We'll have various intellectually challenged children. It includes a whole lot of children with scholastic difficulties, a lot of children who come with difficulties around adolescence, who have got problems in coping with situations, who may have extreme ways of dealing with stress that they come across, which may be quite normal from others' point of view. So you look at gamut of emotional behavior problems on one side, and you see children with varieties of developmental difficulties. Okay. And I work in two different areas within the hospital. One is a more formal psychiatry setting. Okay. St. John's, long back, one of the first hospitals to actually have a psychiatry outpatient right in the middle. There's orthopedics in front, there's ENT on the other side, there's pediatrics this side, there's ophthalmology behind. I mean, I don't think there are, even today, 50 years down the line, too many hospitals around the country. I can probably just count 3 or 4 on the country where psychiatry actually exists right within the main part of the hospital. Very often it's been a tendency to kind of have it set up somewhere else. It's again something for persons such as yourself. We all have varied levels of development, and they come with a variety of issues. There could be a person who's very happy to wait the entire 6-7 hours in the outpatient clinic. He's come busy, prepared with something, he's going on doing that, doesn't want to even get up and go because he just doesn't want to walk with his parents. He's quite happy in a corner there and just sits there and goes on playing with his screen toy or some other book or something like that. All the way till children who are probably getting very angry, come in twice or thrice, yell at me for saying, how long do you want us to wait? Do you think you really want to see me? Do you care for me? And then they go back and sit, parents pulling them back. So, and then there is children who are incredibly hyperactive. I mean, they would be climbing all over the places, and they'll be running into the ward, they're running into the ENT ward right now. So I hope I've given you a sense of the kind of setting and the people that I work with. I'm sure you're bringing with suggestions to help me out on how we can do better. So what is often available are these. Noise, people, adults, children. And if at all, there's some tight zones of containment. Okay, if the child is very hyperactive, we make him sit there so that he doesn't have too much option to run around. Okay. And cafeteria, the toilets are not really that far back. The cafeteria is a fair amount of distance, and there is a small play zone that's shared between our department and pediatrics, and it depends, some of our children may not be capable of fighting the pediatrics visiting children, and some of them, maybe the pediatric children may getting bullied by some of the children who come to us, but it's a common shared place, and they have, sometimes we keep hearing some challenges happening in that area as well. This is what is available. Okay, I honestly don't know, these are my thoughts. Correct me and please educate me on this. What can design achieve? If they tell me now, Ashok, you want to start building a child psychiatry department, how are you going to think? I mean, obviously the first thought for me would be comfort. Okay, is the seating comfort, is there some amount of freedom to express themselves? Suppose they are waiting or they are seeing things around, is there some place for them to express themselves? Since I deal with a lot of very disruptive and difficult children, often some zone of containment is probably necessary, and I probably will be thinking of that. And safety, sometimes children hurt themselves, sometimes they hurt other people, and so these are all probably the principles that I will be thinking of, saying how maybe the design can focus on all these things. Okay, so in terms of just a repetition, leisure zone for play and express. But I feel one of the requirements, and I'm not very sure we have achieved that at St. John's yet, is do children and adolescents who come there and they know next is their turn, they're going to be called, the number has come, the next number is going to come. Are they feeling overwhelmed when they're sitting there? They don't know what's going to happen and they come in, they're not sure what the parents are going to say, what their doctors are going to tell them. Is there something we can do in this structure around where they are waiting and with some amount of trepidation before they come and see the doctors, that they are not getting overwhelmed? Okay. And feel welcome. I mean, you can really make it to some extent. It's a hospital setting. We would really want them to actually move beyond hospital and get on with their lives. Yeah, but definitely they should not feel unwelcome. But this is a theme that keeps coming on again and again for us. They should feel safe. Many of the children who come to see us are so troubled, okay, that I mean they can be incredibly threatened by the most innocuous things happening around the place. So we just need to think about how to make them feel safe. I'll come back to this after just telling you about this. The third line is very important. I think we sometimes forget, and it's often a revelation, that most children are smaller than most working adults. And and I don't know if you all have seen a movie, it's Gods Must Be Crazy or something like that. So in that, there are a couple of kids, they run away, I don't know, they get lost or something. They're running all over the jungles, all over the place they're running, and there's some hyena or something tracking one of them. Okay, and suddenly this young little fellow is probably not more than 2 years or 2.5 years. He's alone. Suddenly the hyena comes, and he remembers what his brother has told him. See, you should look bigger than the other person to scare them off. That is the message, and it sat nicely with him. So he picks on some kind of a bark or something, and he holds up. So suddenly he's looking bigger than the hyena, and the hyena just gets a little very uncertain and moves away. And before long, the bark breaks, and that fellow is again without anything, and again the chasing starts. Okay. Most children are smaller than most working adults, and very fact of just seeing too many adults around can be extremely threatening. I'm not very sure how design can get around this, but it's something for you all to probably reflect on, and we can probably share very soon. Okay. And this is a famous therapy book about a child by name Gibbs, who is around 4.5 years, brought with extreme degree of emotional distress all the time. And apart from playing out during play about him not having enough time with his father, and whatever all kinds of things he plays out in his therapy, one of the things he keeps talking about, and this is a very existential issue for the little boy, but he keeps saying Gibbs is so small. And I think I want to kind of bring that up because I feel that's a key thing when children are coming there, and maybe the adolescents, some of them are bigger, definitely some of the teenagers are far bigger than me when they come and see me, but most of them are actually much smaller, and they probably feel somewhat insignificant, or a lot of nurses and doctors whistling by passing by, and they probably are not very sure whether they belong. How we can bring this into design and make them feel comfortable? To be honest, at least at St. John's, I don't think we have actually thought about it, but it's something I would say if we're going to be discoursing on this and thinking about, I would strongly feel we need to think about this. Before I go to this, I want to come back to this. If you don't mind, if I'm permitted, we can have a few minutes to hear your views on. See, for me, what all would you think of if you would like to keep these principles? Comfort, obviously any service place should provide comfort. The sense of freedom, and when I was dropping my son this morning, and he's a 15-year-old guy, and I asked him, what do you think children, if you have built spaces, what do we ask? He said, there should be a lot of space. Children are, and then hospitals are calculating how much square foot area you are using up for costing your services and so on, so you keep that in mind. But yeah, freedom, containment. So containment works in both ways. Some are so disruptive, you need to contain them, but some are so threatened about what they may do, they feel comforted if they are in a place where they feel their actions can be now contained. They actually gives them a lot of security. They feel that they can actually, they're not worrying, they're not going to act out in a stupid way, their anger, because there is help available, they can be contained. I'll keep coming back to the other theme later on in my talk. I'll keep coming back to it. Is should all this be achieved only through the processes in terms of how the nurse is behaving with the children, how the doctor is behaving? Should that be how it should happen, or the structure and the setting can actually bring about some of these things, and they should not feel overwhelmed and they should feel safe? I would like to know from you all at least some minimal things that you will think should go into designing this setting if these principles are to be kept in mind. And believe me, for me, it's a learning experience. I'm actually using the opportunity to ask your advice.
So usually what I've found is that hospitals have huge atriums and the spaces are very large, and the scale to what the kid relates to that particular space is definitely overwhelming. So even if we have like low heighted spaces for the places where children are catered, could probably comfort them more.
You're saying, I mean, they have small corners where things are all kept a little short and small, or you think the whole building?
Because, like for example, if I look at this particular image where the atrium is very big and the whole waiting area is over there, like people are continuously looking at them, like they are always under surveillance of the externals also, like that. So I'm assuming that the kids who are there, probably some of them who are in emotional trauma, they would always get conscious of who's watching them, what's happening. Versus a low-heighted ceiling, probably a house kind of comfort zones could be created for them to be more comfortable and
like something within the
so it could be a smaller room.
Also, when as I was thinking as a child what I used to do and when I used to enjoy the most. So I remember me playing in the garden and playing with the mud, building something, just playing with some random things. And when we look at hospitals especially, they're all built, everything is planned, everything is built. I think some spaces should be left naturally landscaped and something which is very close to nature where they feel free. The view itself, the scene itself looks more welcoming.
So any kind of enclosure comes in the way of feeling free, is what you're saying. It's like it's got to be
like a
close,
garden. This same atrium could have been like a
open air, maybe some trees or something in between, and build around that.
Yeah.
So all having a natural element, maybe like an aquarium in the center as a focal point or anything.
Yeah.
They love to see colors of different fishes and movement.
Yeah, and I think I had noticed these things because those places, definitely the aquarium places in each floor becomes the main focal point. Yeah, I mean kids really gather around there. And mind you, unlike maybe a pediatrics section of the hospital, these kids are not very sick in a sense of having fever or weak or exhausted. They are capable of doing everything they are physically capable of doing. And yeah, they really, I take that. Yeah, they really like these kind of settings where there are. Some of them do go and just to the garden right outside the unit of hope and they play around there. How would we convey safety through design?
I think probably a very small thing, but adding to her point at this point, the hospital environment is usually smelling of sterility a lot, like phenyl and all these things. That also kind of adds up to an experience which is kind of daunting. So maybe that could be reduced by having open air landscapes and all those things.
Smell.
I was going to add one more thing that within the furniture in such kinds of waiting spaces and all is mostly for adults. So the sizes of the furniture, like even here we can see that the waiting space is mainly, the size is only for adults. So we do not consider children with small ages, but we may add a couple of small chairs which they enjoy and they feel like their home. They feel like theirs.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Good tips. Then I keep wondering, first of course we need to understand in that particular space what kind of clinical activity is intended. It's like we already said, consultation, it can be therapeutic kind of place, it can be a place for very many mechanical kind of assessments that a lot of children go through. Should the setting help that particular purpose? Okay, and so children will come more easily with for assessment, like he was suggesting they should get very scared of something there, they come more easily. So it's easy for the professional, is not wasting time on, making the child feel comfortable. So in some way, should the setting help the intended activity, or can the setting be made such that it can actually give new observations? Like can we observe certain things in the behavior in child psychiatry when dealing with developmental difficulties like autism and all that? It's very important to know what all kind of unusual things the children do, and how we can bring about certain differences in the setting so that that whole range of their those ways of behavior find expression. So it kind of gives cues off and shows new that the professional can make new observations because the setting is made like that. In some way, then the setting is built to favor the activity of the professional. Okay, but of course it follows all the other principles of safety, comfort, and all that. Of course, there's huge variety in terms of sizes of children who come there. I mean, that is something that's, it's not going to be in the next 15 years, 20 years. I don't think India is going to have child psychiatry settings where there's purely for infants, purely for toddlers, purely for. So there's going to be any child psychiatry setting is going to be for across the at least 0 to 18 age span. Yeah. And how much of variety can be built into the design? I'm not very sure about this because it's definitely some things that can't keep changing on a regular basis, except maybe we can change some pictures, we can change some plants which are kept there or something. We can't change too much, but something to also think about, whether design can allow, because some children come for a very short period of time, maybe few weeks, their work is done, they probably come for a review 1 or 2 years later. So now, but I would think for them, when each time they come, if they feel this is a place where they can identify with, they remember it that way, and there is some stability to how the place is, and all that it offers is kind of remains consistent and stable, they may feel good about it. But these kids are growing and they may actually seek newer things around that place that actually helps them. So this is always a conflict about how much should a place actually setting be helping the actual growth. So that's one of the key goals of any child professional, regardless of what specialty they work in. And or should stability in terms of comfort and security for the child be a key issue? Of course, there's always the thing about what is practical and how much imagination can be allowed to work on the setting. Like you all talked about processes, how much of it is structure, how much of it should what our goals of what the setting should do should come through in the way all the staff and the professional and all everybody behaves there. How much that creates a difference other than the actual structure of the particular place. I mean, I'm sure it works both ways. But I think defining what that place is meant for, I would think is probably very crucial to deciding how it's going to be adequately shaped up. So there are waiting area, I would think some of them wait from half an hour, some of them wait for many hours. I think these are the 3 different zones I think it should be containing. Okay. Then observe zone is to help them just feel comfortable, things which they like, things adolescents and children like, they could be slightly different kind of stuff. Okay. And when I say keep them coming, I mean that they have to feel like coming back to the place so that they find that there are things that they like, and preferably quite a few things so that they're not done with it in the first visit. They feel excited to come back and check what they had forgotten the last time. So probably something that would also play a role, so that they are spending the time observing around the place and exploring and wondering what all things are there, which itself keeps them occupied. That will probably be one major part of the waiting area. Freedom. Some kind of wall or activity that encourages them to attempt drawing, writing, or even tiny little areas where they can play around with soft motor, fine motor things. They can play around with some games there, or even manipulate their more gross motor like jump and squeeze through or whatever. Just some kind of an activity that keeps them to express themselves in any way. Okay, believe me, actually the process will include asking the parents not to interfere and let the child do whatever the child is doing, because after time whatever you set up, the parents will stop the child from doing, because they're worried either about injury or they're worried about something getting broken and the hospital might charge them for it or something like that. So it kind of plays on their minds. Now, if you're dealing with adolescent clinics, I personally believe it's a good idea to provide screens and consoles, because they it's for whatever bad things may be associated with it. That is one area, that's one zone where they can really express themselves and they can play and what makes them feel very comfortable. And this is one area, it's kind of happening across walls. We have set up in psychiatry department in the main area of hospital. In the psychiatry department, there are few screens kept which are health educational screens, and they can come and look around, and there are lots of information stuff coming through that. But this is the challenge for us. How to make the consultation room, there will be panels where either when they are sitting and doing something, or they bring something from home to give it to you and saying, I've drawn this, it's for you or something. And you put it there, and it can be only a finite space. It's not going to, 1 year down the line, you're taking off some and putting others. These children come and say, I put it here, where did that go? And they want to check it out. Okay. And see, you feel bad to have broken their sense of trust or whatever it is that kind of came to them. But then, but how to run this consultation area that becomes a crucial. And by and large, Indian families, they want that core thing to get sorted out. It doesn't matter how it's outside, they'll somehow manage. But they want that core thing should be comfortable, they all get a chance to get real value for what they come looking for that. Suggestions on that, because we need some space for the child, some space for families to sit and see, and of course the observation area also comes pretty close by. Any thoughts? There's always the issue of too many adults around the place. There will be only 1 or 2 child into the consultation area. At least outside waiting area, there are a lot of children around. They come in here, it's only a couple of children, sometimes just 1 child. And all are adults. And so, how would you give us suggestions on how to make that place continue to be child friendly?
I don't know if it's a far part, but the moment I take my kid to the doctor is an alien person, and there's no familiarity with that person ahead of time. So if there is a way in which the doctor gets familiar before the actual consultation happens, it might be easier, because these kids are much more intelligent, I think, than regular kids people with psychology. And if the familiarity comes ahead of time, then it might be easier. I don't know what this thought.
So probably spend some time with children, having a very
common
general discussion, and then we actually start listening. I really appreciate what you're saying, that we keep studying how much is the process versus how much is the structure of the place, how much it does. But whatever structure we build, if the process is bad, it's not going to work. I'll take that point of view. All consultation rooms are those kind of chairs. You come to syndromes, you see hundreds of them in the repair area, hundreds of them all over the hospital. There's a big chairs. I don't know if there's some real we have some play areas. I come to that play rooms out there where there are small little, they're very tiny chairs. Unfortunately, in order to speak after quite a few of them got broken and thrown around by children, the maintenance department in supreme wisdom has given us such hard steel made chairs, even though they are only this much. They're heavy enough to where somebody has to lift and keep it aside, and they'll come with edges which can hurt the children and all that, but still some kind of a seating arrangement itself in a child mental setting, if it can be just natural like at home. It's routine chairs, there's no table in between. But even if people are sitting in a circle, so be it, but there's no table in between. Definitely not a rectangular table with 2 on the other side and the doctor on this side. Could help, but if the child has access to doing certain things very close to where they are sitting, it probably helps them feel that way. And sometimes the way they get engrossed in it, and the parents communicate to the child to get back to the consultation or something, that itself brings out so much of their interpersonal, how they deal with issues at home.
So I was the one which says observation area. In fact, all the points were saying that how to bring about a setting which which triggers a natural conversation or natural setting. But when we look at the pictures, they don't look like
To be honest, I'm sorry, I don't want to convey anything through the pictures.
No.
They're just some relief to the slides, that's all. Believe me.
They are not bad. They are very engaging. There are a lot of colors, which is the good part about it. Visually they are very engaging. They are very lively. But when we say that something that should make them feel at home and encourage a natural, a day-to-day kind of conversation, then this is just, I'm thinking aloud. I don't know if it's correct or not. So can it be treated like a normal average home? The room itself, the setting itself, and there could be something like a pantry where you want to go and just make a tea or coffee or something and come back, and instead of a very formal consultation room, it could be a living area.
That's a nice thought. I mean, I really think, yeah.
It's like a home. So you
Rainbow Children's Hospital will engage you very soon. You can work with them, I'm telling you. They, see, it's definitely, yeah. Only thing is, there is a purpose. The job has to get done.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have too many distractions. Like I'll come to children with autism shortly. There's too many distractions, it's a big problem, and then getting them back to doing the particular purpose for which they come there, there's a challenge there. But I agree with you, how much comfortable it can be made. My consultation outside St. John's is small, it's a room in a house, and just got a few settees and some toys around and all that. And children, some of them are lounging on that or just on the carpet with some of the toys doing their own stuff. Okay, parents do feel it's nice. Okay, but I sometimes feel it kind of takes a little longer for me to finish consultation there than I have to do it. So there will be some balance between. Yeah, but I take your point. I think it will be great to make it as close as possible. I have put that point in under the wards. How much the wards can be made to appear a little closer to the homes, because that can be a much more. It will actually help. It will help, and it won't be really. It won't be hindrance in any setting. They're going to be there for some time. Yeah. Move on fast. Play therapy is a form of psychotherapy, a kind of non-medical kind of intervention in children below 8-9 years of age. And this play setting has got a whole lot of everyday kind of stuff. There can be some space, like she was pointing out, small space which looks like maybe a bedroom, there's a toilet here, there's a kitchen there. They create all this in toys, and usually children more than 8-9 don't get into play therapy settings. And so these children, they kind of, for 1 or 2 or 3 days, they just enjoying playing around, seeing things. But very soon you'll be amazed at how they start bringing in their usual patterns of functioning at home, and depending upon the way they are relating to the therapist or the therapist is relating to them, they start bringing in, they might kind of see them as a paternal figure or as a sibling or some aunt, or depending on how they relate, and they bring in the issues from home and it starts getting played out. And the toys, the way they start playing out, they kind of start discussing, playing with the toys, bringing in those themes. It's a very, very long-standing, I told you the Tips in Search of Self, the book I put up. It's a very long-standing child psychiatric intervention. And yeah, this commonly certain types of sand trays are made in this thing, because getting messy and seeing how they deal with it and how they have been dealt with at home and how they react to these kind of situation is integral to it. It's a small water area and areas for expressing themselves, but nowhere there should be any safety issues, and there should be only so much that they can run around, so there's some containment built into it. And some part of the containment comes in the process, because there's a rigid adherence to how much time we'll spend there, and there's a constant reminder about when it gets over. Okay, but it's made in such a way that the child comes again and again. And so play therapy area is one area where probably I would feel, and I saw a lot of sessions in the next couple of days of this. I think a lot of that can really make one, probably the most unbelievably good play therapy setting I saw was in England, in Manchester, and that lady was so proud of it. She had built that setting over almost 10-15 years of hard work, and it had virtually everything one can imagine and how it can be done, and it was a very famous place. A lot of referrals from everywhere used to come. And when I went the second time, all the managers, and there are so many more health professionals than doctors only now in the National Health Service, and suddenly they were saying this much space 3 therapies done per day, how much is the salary being given, how much is the space, and they are cutting down the size of the room and all that. So there is always this thing you're going to hit in when you come with thing. So finally, when it comes to working with child mental health, I feel it's got to become a showpiece for that institution. It's got to become a showpiece for the society to say they care and they're willing to provide all these things. Just like providing play areas and civic communities areas in the town, which you're probably going to hear about in one of the lectures later. So I think to some extent, once you could start thinking about revenue model, these things become a little complicated. But yeah, play therapy is one area where probably design has a lot to really offer. Family therapy areas, seating for many different ages, and there should be some scope for the child to get lost if required. And and then we'll see why he's getting away like that when certain things are being discussed, or how the parent deals with the child and the child is getting out of conversation. Scope to express, and if possible, like I showed in that one-way mirror thing, scope for observing unobtrusively. All these are very essential for family therapy. Individual therapy area, more often it's children more than 19 years of age. Unlike the play therapy area, here they are actually sitting and conversing and discussing issues. And this is a place where they are likely to repeatedly come, probably 10, 15, 20 visits. Okay, I would think the principles we need: warmth, encouraging expression, and confirming safety. All these are principles which will come again and again. Individual therapy, you really have just with the child, so there's a big responsibility on the part of the adult therapist. So should be something to encourage. There has to be something, I think, in the design to make them actually come back and explore something more. So yeah, so that's about the child psychiatry part. And then there's the other part where I see a lot of children with autism. Now, autism is basically a slight quirk in development. Unlike mental retardation, where almost every aspect of development a child is behind on, so these children have difficulty in maybe getting language, or they start using language in a strange sort of way, right? And they have tendency to get stuck on certain stereotypical routines. You'll be amazed at, there's this child who will come at outpatient, he will just throw his chapel, and his father has to kick the chapel all the way from the entrance of the UTI right up till he comes and sits in the waiting area. For obvious, several good reasons, he decides to just take the chapel and bring it in. The child can create such a tantrum that it's impossible situation for the father. He can easily swallow the embarrassment of kicking the chapel all the way inside. Okay. Now they can get stuck on several such stereotypical routines, and it takes a while for the family to figure out he's getting upset because this has not happened, and then they start recognizing in that pattern. But once that is done, they are extremely comfortable and they are allowed to do. So that's one of the features of them, and they have a lot of sensory issues. They can either get very, very caught up with certain types of sensations. For example, a child might want to just take a spoon and keep clanging it in a particular way, and it's always in a particular way. It's never in a different way. He has to keep getting that sound, or it can be that he wants to experience a particular texture again and again and again and again, and he keeps doing it. There are a lot of these sensory issues. Certain types of food they will not accept because it feels differently. Certain types of clothes they will not accept because it feels differently on the skin. So they have several complex reactions to various sensations. Like some of you are mentioning smell of the place. Sometimes we not know why the child is upset, and some others sometimes we think those mothers are problems of being extremely rigid and not modifying the child's behavior. But sometimes they bring the same perfumes they use in the house and they say, I'll just put it here, doctor, don't worry, he will just feel a little more comfortable. They say these kind of things. Honestly, in that for half an hour, 45 minutes, you really don't want to start a debate on those kind of things. But just getting you a sense of what autism child is. But they have relatively good visual spatial skills. Yesterday, this guy is probably some 11-year-old. He came and he wrote a street and a building and roads and vehicles on the road. Incredibly precise. He didn't use a scale, he didn't use anything, he just do it. And it all happened in matter of in 5-7 minutes. He didn't, I've done this, he just came, and he doesn't even know that there is something that other children who will do it will share joy, because autism children don't even know how to actually share joy. He just came and showed it, and he's done. Then he said, can you give me another sheet? And he starts doing it. So they have got extremely good visual spatial skills. Maybe architects should probably get interested in autism for that one very good reason, right? And they can, they are trained to cut vegetables. No two pieces would be different in size. They can make it absolutely the same with extreme speed, and so they can, once they learn that, they can be extremely particular about size and shapes. So they have very good visual-spatial skills, and so they are slightly different. Some of them have various levels of intellectual disability, but they are somewhat, apart from just deficits, they got an unusual additional profile to them. So for them, definitely this kind of setting would appeal to some autistic children, but not to many others. Okay, they need space for some repetitive play, maybe just go on banging something again and again, and we should not be asked to stop it. Okay, and there should be a rapid, there should be an opportunity for them to move either from very high stimulation zone to a very low stimulation zone, because both can be sometimes required for children at different points in time. And there has to be a lot of openness within the circle when people are sitting and talking. If they are all crowded very close to each other, right, suddenly the child will start screaming. You don't know what sensation in the setting he suddenly reacted to and took off. Okay, and there should be fair amount of space behind. So the chairs are very close to the wall, and there is very constrained space. Most autistic children start getting very upset, and they won't express, they will not have the language sometimes, and they start getting so disturbed. It can be very hard. So definitely space in between the people and space behind. Many of them undergo speech therapy. Now here, speech therapy is a job. I mean, they have to keep coming there again and again and again. So we can't allow the luxury of just making them feel just good and comfortable. We should actually get them to work. It's work time for them. They cannot be just, so it has to be minimalistic, take care of acoustics, a lot of outside noise should not come in, but there should be small zones. In many times speech therapies, they just build this level of the ceiling, the therapist goes in and sits with the child down, minimal things, just the objects they're keeping there to train the child in, and the focus is on extreme focused interaction, and they have to repeatedly learn whatever is being taught in speech therapy. So anything that enhances maybe that little wall surfaces that are there, some kind of changing displays which facilitates interaction, that's something which probably will be useful for these children. And many of them, like I said, they've got so many sensory issues. So the sensory issues can be either they don't feel a lot of sensation. Some of them, they can just eat 3 chilies one after another, not a drop of tear comes out of the eyes. And for them, so the taste sensation threshold is kept so high, they're just not perceiving the kind of that particular taste that we would all probably get very disturbed by. Okay, or they can be like wanting a particular smell, they'll just take everything and they'll keep smelling and they'll come and check everything. And sensory integration rooms are where they're actually taught to either develop tolerance for sensations that they're uncomfortable with, or get satiated with certain sensations and move on, so that they can continue doing other things other than getting caught and going on repeatedly doing it. So different sensations, different surfaces and materials. In fact, Deepthi might put it up tomorrow. I actually have that picture, but I didn't bring it because it's that the sensory integration room is made. There are several different types of lighting. There are several different types of floor. The floor will have 8-10 different materials. They may made to walk on each different types of floors. Then there are different types of noises and sounds created. They gradually develop some kind of they get sensitized to, and their hyper responsive behavior comes down. That's an area where again I feel design can have lots to offer. And of course, motor skills many times are more sensory motor skills. I mean, the child might be just, there's something we take for granted. Sensation about how our joint is my joint here feeling extended or feeling flexed, or my toes are curled up or not. I mean, we just take it for granted. Many children with autism, their wiring is so wrong, they just don't know. And unless they keep on probably checking the toes again and again, they don't even get a sense. And you're wondering why is he repeatedly doing this. Now, till he's made to become sensitive, kind of desensitized to the sensation from the toes, he's probably not going to stop. He's going to keep doing it. So many such quirks in autism children, the occupational therapists work on with number of repeated types of activities. They use trampolines, swings. One of the commonest things you'll find in many places are half a dozen tires hanging from different places, and these children just like we do it around trees and all. As children, you just go around a rope and you kind of go, and then you want to keep coming back and experiencing that vestibular sensation, that sense of unbalance. Okay, they just love it sometimes, and you need to get them out of that addiction before you can get them to sit and focus on learning speech, for example. So these are the complicated ways in which their certain sensory wirings interfere with learning other things which we feel are important for life. He may not be able to make out the color at all. because that is one particular wavelength of light, the ray, the electrical sensations are not getting processed at all. So he may not even know what it is. So now so these children, if they react badly because they are not able to make out what it is, we have no way of knowing why is the child behaving like that. Many times with children with autism, it takes a whole lot of detective work to figure out what is upsetting this child. And a lot of special schools do this job extremely well. Now, for them, what the kind of this different materials, different surfaces are all as part of therapeutic process. So either getting them used to certain sensations which they are having difficulty coping with, getting them appreciate different types of sensations that are possible. So it's a truly therapeutic requirement to make them actually do that. So it's in those settings that within that setting the differences come in.
So are the parents part of the therapy sessions?
Yeah, I mean, by and large, all good centers would allow the parents to sit there because the recommendations are something like 20 to 25 hours of therapeutic work for children with developmental disabilities, whatever the developmental disability is. Most parents and children can't get it, or they don't get the services like that. So if they get 3 or 5 or 6 hours with the therapist, they sit and do, then they repeat those things similarly at home. So any setting which doesn't allow parents to come in, I think it's just not doing justice.
So these are solutions in the clinical setting. When we go apart from clinical settings, people are started saying, we go for a walk, just for a visit. Do you think should there be some design solutions in these areas to make these people more
Like in parks and all that, there's been a lot of move about. I think one organization called KSSA, I think, if you just check their website, they have been working with BBMP people to see how parks can be made friendly for children with autism. So maybe that's something we have to look up. They have done some work with BBMP on that. KSSA. Yeah, I mean, but it's like I said, no, it's more what we can afford depends upon how much the society can afford, how much the city can afford. I mean, it's often a balance between what is possible and. But definitely, there is definitely some work on that. How? Because some parks are just not friendly for children with autism. And the Karafak is particularly working with them to say how they can design it in such a way that. So you probably go to the website, you might kind of get some thoughts on that matter.
And can these people, people who have autism, can they visit to different places completely independent?
I mean, by the time they are 14, 15, that is the goal. I mean, they can be made independent. They learn a lot. I mean, they develop. So good thing about all developmental disorders is they keep developing. Though, I mean, if certain things are not achieved at a particular age, good part of it may not get achieved ever. But still, within a bandwidth, there is continuous development going on. So as long as understanding teachers and understanding parents train the children in a particular way, many of them become very, very independent. In fact, it's easy for them if they learn the skills to be independent because they don't care for anything else around them. They'll just go and finish while other people might work, vary of other things happening because they can connect with it. This person will not even connect with it. If he's taught the skill, they'll just go and do it. It's much easier for them.
Can you please highlight some factors on the idea of effect of light, daylight on autism kids? Because I've read a few papers, some researchers say they are not suitable for autism kids, and some people say more daylight is necessary for autism kids.
Yeah. The one important thing that happens to children, particularly with autism, is the usual daylight cycle that we all develop within 20 days of birth. Okay, and the biochemical changes in the brain which decides what is day and night for us, and accordingly a whole lot of hormones get set up, and there are timings for when the steroids are secreted, when different things. That whole cycle, it depends on the brain reacting to the daylight changes and coming out with the cycle, and that is for life that print is made. And a lot of children with autism don't get that right at all. Their sleep-wake schedules are terribly oily, and it's as if their brain is just not responding to the usual daylight differences. Now, sensory integration areas actually use that principle, exposing them to alternating levels of light, not so much purely intensity of light itself, but also to do with colors. And they really I mean, it's not an exact science that empirically they go on figuring out what works for this child based on certain common indices that they observe in terms of what makes the child comfortable and what makes the child expressive, and they kind of either downplay or give it much more required for given each child is different. I mean, there's never like in one direction, and they play around with this to make them feel more comfortable. And the entire therapy is not achieving anything except making the child feel comfortable, mind you. After that, other things which you want the child to learn has to be done. So their response to light is extremely, almost a third of children with autism, the response to light is extremely disrupted, and that kind of sets up a vicious cycle of difficulties where they are awake in the night time. Parents are extremely tired in the morning because they are stayed awake with them, so they start yelling at these children in the daytime because they are rot in the mornings. And these children, when they are brought to therapy centers, they sleep off, they cannot undergo therapy. For months together, therapy doesn't happen. Sometimes the therapy center don't even tell the parents that this child is sleeping off. And the entire time is wasted when effective intervention could have happened. So definitely, I agree with you. Light plays a huge role in these children, but it's not, unfortunately, you can't define it. It has to be over a 3 to 6 month period. A smart occupational therapist figures out now what is the best combination that helps this child remain calm. And definitely, it's something to be. It may not be relevant for a clinic setting and all that because it has to happen in a particular way, in a particular time, and it has to be finished and done and does. But especially sensory integration centers within clinics, they will have different types of lighting, different types of, they will be probably some things are taught by making it entirely dark for children, and you'll be amazed at how these children comfortably learn that time. See, no parent would have thought that if I had to teach him this, best way is to make the room dark and teach him. Who will think of that? But some therapists figure that out, and then these children start learning more things. So that's a big thing, but like I said, it's not an exact science. How to measure it, and whether a center can be designed in such a way that there can be variations in this across time, I don't know. I mean, if you think it's designable, it's something to think about. But one way to do that is to work closely with occupational therapists. They do the sensory integration training for these children, and they're extremely good at understanding this aspect. And that is just to get them calm, mind you. I mean, all the other training actually happens after that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now request Professor Jagannath on stage.
I'd like to thank Dr. Ashok for the very interesting talk that he has given. In the beginning, sir, you were mentioning that you were not so sure how you would address the group of people who have come here. And I think you really did the right thing for us, because as teachers, we wanted to know more about what is the issue, what are your requirements. And based on that, now as teachers, we could probably help us to formulate our scheme of teaching and patterns, so that it could be structured out to say how I would design a space for a child or a child with some limitations. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much for the amazing and interesting talk that you gave us. And I should also thank you for coming over here with us. This very short notice also very much. Thank you so much.